Hello and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Byron Rodgers. This podcast is dedicated to the executive protection practitioner, the private security professional. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological, physiological fitness that goes into being an efficient and effective executive protection agent. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a mom that's looking at how to protect her children, or a father that's focused on how to protect his family, I believe this podcast has something for all of you. We might even get into some tales from the crypts of true Hollywood stories from time to time. I'm doing this podcast because I feel the reality of this job is simple. If you really want to be good at executive protection, it's more than just a job. It really is a lifestyle. And those of you who've been in the game for any serious amount of time, you already know what I'm saying is true. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy the show. Out.
Boom! Hey, what's going on, you guys? Byron Rodgers here with another episode of Executive Protection Lifestyle. I am here with my friend Jeff Burson, who's a lieutenant with police department in Mason, Ohio. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing good. So Jeff and I ran into each other at EPI, at Executive Protection Institute recently. And it was just good to go through the course with you. You know, you look through the room and you notice other people that are just moving through the information kind of, you know, on another level. And we had kind of values that I believe we were able to share during the course. And so there was some good connection and things like that there, you know.
Absolutely. It's I think when people really connect with this type of work, it shows. You can see the ones who are really dialed in where this is important to them, and the ones who they do it, but it's not their life's mission.
Absolutely. Yeah. The ones where it's just a job and the ones where it's more than just a job, you know. I think kind of now that you mentioned that, I think one of the things that we both shared with the work is that, like, I do my best to try to be myself at work and have an honor. Like, I try to use values that I would naturally honor if I was just minding my business, you know? So like, I'm treating people the way they want to be treated. I'm trying to give people respect first. You know, like, this is the way I live my life anyways. And I superimpose that on my work product. And I think that's kind of what you were kind of getting at a little bit.
Well, and it shows, Byron. I saw, and it's not that there was anything, you can see it. You can see it. There were several people in the class where you could see this is incredibly important to them. This is what they do, but it's also who they are. And you're one of those people where this is kind of what you are. And I appreciated that. And that's when you asked me, hey, what did you want to get together and talk about this? Absolutely, because it's very clear that it's very genuine for you.
Well, thank you. And that's kind of where we kind of connected too, because I was feeling the same way. We were talking about, you know, just dealing with people and, you know, how to create that connection that then can lead to influence, and then can also be a tool for you to do all kinds of things like problem solve and all that good stuff. You know?
Absolutely.
Good stuff. I love it. And that experience at EPI was positive. What would you say, just real quick, what would you say EPI was like for you, you know, going through that course?
EPI was a great experience for me. I have had some executive protection experience. Mine is a little bit different. Some of the people that I've been responsible for aren't terribly recognizable. So that's doing things at a different level. Then I've worked with professional athletes that are recognized anywhere they go in the world. And I really enjoyed it, but I learned a lot at EPI. I thought that was good training, good group of instructors, and I'm very glad I went.
Outstanding. Yeah, the volume of information was impressive to me.
Yes, it was. There was a lot.
You know, and I was waiting for them to turn the stress up, but kind of their approach to adult learning, I was also impressed by. There were no stupid games. There was no stress. There was no need. It was just all about like creating a safe place for us to learn, which I never experienced because it's like military training and then like cool guy stuff. So I was kind of like, when are they going to start like kicking the door in and like, but that was positive.
Well, and I think that learning style, when you've got a group of adult professionals, give people the opportunity to learn and retain a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think I saw too, for sure. Okay, good to go. Well, I always start off with these kind of deep understanding questions.
Sure.
Who are you at your core?
At my core, I am a person who believes in fairness. Is bizarre of a concept as that is for some. I grew up thinking, because of my life's experience, that the world was basically fair. And it was until I was a young adult that I figured out, no, the world's just been relatively good to you. That doesn't mean that it's fair.
That's so good. That's awesome. Wow.
And then, but what I am is interested and committed to taking care of people. I'm a protector at my very core. I believe in showing respect to people. And I really think that when you, as a person in a position of authority, show people respect, it absolutely comes back to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I agree 100%. And the world is fair thing is so interesting to me, because like my paradigm was like the exact opposite, growing up. So then how have you dealt with things since so you grew up thinking like, this is pretty awesome, and then the world kind of gave you a different experience. How does that affect you these days, like in your day to day?
It has been fantastic for me, and I'll explain very briefly. Here's what I mean by that. I grew up, life was pretty good. I didn't have dangers in life, so to speak, just regular growing up things, but life was pretty good. I did well in school. Teachers were very accepting, got lots of positive feedback, so things went really smoothly for me. It wasn't until I became a young police officer that I recognized that many, many of the beliefs that I held were absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
And that was a big, we had talked about, kind of what's that pivotal moment in your life? It was when I was probably 24, 25, and I had this moment where I realized that a lot of the things that I've thought for years, absolutely, they're wrong.
Yeah.
That I had this idea that, especially getting into some of it, if police arrested this individual, he or she must be guilty because that was done by the police. And I grew up in kind of a police family. And I believed that if somebody lived in poverty, perhaps that was a choice. If someone suffered from mental illness, well, that must be not a choice, but it must be some type of a character flaw or a sign of weakness. And it wasn't until I started dealing with people all the time, especially people in crisis, that I realized none of those beliefs were accurate.
Wow. And then once you made that realization, what did it do inside of you? Did it cause you to be more did it cause you to be more compassionate? Did it cause you to kind of be like, it's a scary world out there? Like, how did that affect you?
So I thought about these things and I thought, okay, so here's what I want. I want to actually know what I'm talking about.
This is a really good approach.
I thought here's what I'm going to do. I'm a young officer, and I was recognized for being able to talk to people well. Talk people into my patrol car as opposed to fighting them. Talk people into leaving a separation where you've got a domestic violence situation. And I thought, okay, this is good, but now I need to figure out why. And I need to get better at this. I knew that things were going okay for me when I was selected early as a crisis negotiator. And why that became important for me is I never actually put in for it. One of my assistant chiefs saw something in me and said, this is somebody who can do this job and can do it well. So I believe I kind of felt like maybe I was getting along in my career because of kind of base level skills, but I wanted to actually be good at it, not just get by. You've always, I know you've known people in your life where they were kind of innately good at what they did, but they put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, they just took it for granted. And then I've always had to work like extra hard to be like just as good. But then it ends up turning out that I get farther because the work ethic.
No question about it. And I decided if I'm going to do this and I'm going to make this my career, and clearly I have, since this is now year 26, I'm in year 26, I was going to be as good at it as I could possibly be.
Outstanding.
So I made it my goal to do that, and I've taken every training opportunity, and now what I enjoy is I get the opportunity to teach crisis communication.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very worthwhile. I teach it to young officers and to people in the business world too, because communication is universal. It doesn't have
absolutely.
And I've had people, when I was kind of looking at some things to talk with you, I've had people kind of ask me, why would people in the EP world need to know about crisis communication? And because our best skills are avoidance. Our skills are talking to people and getting voluntary compliance. It looks terrible if we have to. So why not get that voluntary compliance because you can communicate well?
Boom, there it is. I love it. That's the truth, man. That's exactly one of the reasons I was like, we need to talk. I find that social dynamics and cultural dynamics and things along these lines tend to be the biggest hangups for guys. I find that a lot of what we do is really that complicated. It really isn't. But where guys trip is in these little spots where it comes to communication, cultural understanding the culture, blending with the culture, honoring the local culture of your executive or whoever you're working with. That's good stuff. I'm excited to get into this. How did you get into doing what you're doing? Like, how did you get into law enforcement?
It was all the way back in high school. It was a career day. There was a detective who was in, and there was actually a special agent from the Secret Service who came in. And after they finished their little presentations, I walked out of there saying, I'm going to do something like that. It was fascinating to me. I liked that it was all about interacting. Not a sit behind the desk kind of guy. That's very difficult for me. So I like this career path, and I made a decision. I was probably 17 years old, and I knew this was the route I'm going.
Awesome. That's good, man. And it's just been laser focused ever since. That's good to go. Tactical background.
Okay, tactical background. I've been very, very lucky. My department has a pretty robust training budget.
Awesome.
And we have really tried to get out in front of the threats that are going on in our country right now. We spend a lot of time. Yes, there's shooting training, but it's also, things like close quarters combat training. How many police departments get CQC training in and around vehicles? That's where so many of our deadly force encounters occur. So around our cars. So we get things like that, simunitions, all of the things that you can think of. And then we're armed today. When I started, we were armed with a pistol, 3 magazines, and a pump action shotgun. Today we have battle rifles that are more sophisticated than some of our, maybe not than our troops, but certainly troops of other countries. We're prepared. And I think the general rule, law enforcement has realized we have to be prepared to engage in short battles.
Yeah.
And then the other portion of that is every type of verbal communication and de-escalation training. That's where your tactical training needs to start. And then, of course, I'm not a big guy, so I spend a lot of time training in a particular martial arts style that lends itself to someone my size.
Outstanding. I love that, man. That's good to go. I think there's just a lot that needs to be said in our industry, and especially at this time when there's like really cool training stuff out there, and you can do all your like running and gunning. But I think there's a lot to be said for being able to get that voluntary compliance. It's like a martial art to me. It's that art of influence, man. I have so many situations that I've gone through where, thank God, I could talk that man or woman off out of trying to even get an autograph from a client at that moment, or trying to take out their anger on the client, or whatever it is. Wanted to make a scene at that moment, and it was just because I dealt with them respectfully. They were like, "Okay," and I'm like, "Thank you."
And I would urge you, never lose that edge. You're very, very good at that, and that's
thank you.
One of the things that I would recommend to everyone in this profession is to get as good at communicating as you possibly can. It's like everything else. Not everyone is going to be a sniper, but everyone should be able to shoot. Not everyone's going to be a hostage negotiator, but everyone should be able to communicate well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%. So we were talking and you mentioned the lack of support networks that people have nowadays. What would you say about that and its implications on our society and where you see it work?
Well, here's the social dynamic that I'm at least seeing in my industry is that we have a group of people, especially younger people, who have taken social media and instead of using that to augment or bolster their social interaction, it appears to us that they're using it in place of
social action, activity, and connectivity.
And they're without that one-on-one, without that reading what the other person's doing and saying and getting the social clues and cues, they're missing so much of communication. And when all you get is that typed word, you miss. And then, unfortunately, if you see that you have this incredibly curated life on social media, I don't see the trials and tribulations of everything. All I see, I see this life, this Instagram life, or Facebook life. It's not real. And of course, how can I possibly compete with that? How do I keep up with that? So I think it lends itself to depression. I think we've got a whole group of people who feel very isolated and alone, and they don't have that support network to draw on. Maybe they go out and look for different types of support. I think that's kind of what draws kids who don't have much of a support network. That draws, years ago it would draw kids into gang life because they're getting that social support. They're getting the people who seem to care about them, want them to be with them. Now I'm online, and one of the things that we saw at EPI in one of the presentations was an exhaustive list of hate groups.
Yeah, it was spectacular. Yeah, it was amazing.
And that these people have put together websites devoted to a culture and mentality of hating another group.
Yeah.
That's exhausting. I don't understand it, but that's my worry. And then because people aren't developing coping mechanisms, they're not being told no, they're not interacting with other humans. When they're required to interact with other humans, sometimes they act so far out of bounds that it can be devastating. And I think we need, as a society, I'm not saying that social media is bad, but it's never going to replace interpersonal interactions.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like the whole bit about emotional intelligence that comes from learning how to deal with no and learning impulse control in general, the whole kind of Pavlovian stimulus response, like conditioning that we're subjected to through our devices. Like I remember when I first started my psychology courses and I'm learning about the dogs and the bell and Pavlov. And I'm like, every time there rings a bell, he give them food and they start salivating. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. It basically sounds like he gave an iPhone. Gave him an iPhone, you know what I mean? Like,
different.
Like I'm sitting here like, yeah, my phone vibrates. Someone loves me on social media. Someone's text messaging me. There's a little bit of dopamine. And now when I go to Iraq, I'm imagining a ghost phone in my cargo pocket for the first month or two because my mind is like, come on, let me get that phone back.
And you not literally, but in some ways you have some type of withdrawal.
Yeah, that's what I was noticing. I was like, this is a real thing. Like we called it the ghost phone. Guys would reach down and grab their cargo pockets and be like, oh, ghost phone. And we'd all be like, because having a phone was like a no contraband. So we'd all be like, does he have, everyone would notice. And it was a real thing on ship and in the sand. The other thing I think that you said was awesome is like, because we're seeing all this racial issue, like this stimulated, like what I believe should be pretty dead topic. But I've always believed that what's going to fix that is human beings giving each other positive interactions with one another that can really be like in direct opposition of these ideologies that people grow up with. Like I'm in the Marine Corps and Texas dude's like, yo, I mean, I never really liked black dudes growing up. He's like, but I didn't know thee, and you're like pretty cool. And I'm like, yeah, dude, thanks, man. I'm like, we're cool. He's cool enough to tell me this, but with a lack of connectivity and a lack of interaction, it's kind of like a hotbed for these types of misunderstandings and ideologies and hates, in like illegitimate hatred to really fester and grow and last.
It's funny because first off, I couldn't agree with you more. I've asked people, why hate this group? How many of them do you know? Well, many. You don't know any? How do you know? What do you and the other thing I think is, and this is a concept that I took from a class years and years ago, is if people from different groups are now sitting in the same room and they're talking with each other, maybe having something to eat, it's very, very hard to hate someone in that close of proximity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you all automatically, humans have an immediate connection with other humans. The idea that it's so much easier to hate or to try to hate a person or a group that's removed from me, that's out there somewhere. Very, very difficult. And that's one of the programs that our police department's involved in is called Bridge of Life. And what it does is it pairs up a police officer with a member of the African American community. And these are people who then pledge that we're going to get together. We get together about 15 times a year, have lunch, talk, and exchange ideas. Well, this poor guy I got paired up with, I asked him so many questions to please take these people. I were the same age, and he had young kids. His son was a college-age student, and his father was in law school. I had this guy take so many questions to his kids for me because I was interested in that younger generation and their view of police and of law enforcement in general. And I wanted to see if it gets damaged, how do I fix it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, they were very pleasantly surprised that I asked questions and I wanted that kind of interaction. But then they had great answers for me too, so I was very happy because I asked them. This was after a particularly high-profile shooting. I asked the question, are you afraid of me? I don't mean me as an individual, but me, what I represent. And they said, no, because that wasn't their life's experience. But basically, be yourself, smile, talk, be pleasant, be respectful, and it will stay that way. So a completely different generation, but yet they completely understand and were able to put into words exactly what everyone else has already been thinking, that being kind, being respectful, when is that not appropriate?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly right. It's, yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. And I find too, what's really interesting when I sit down and I talk to someone, if I'm ever lucky enough to run into someone who will be like, there have been a couple of times when people have been like, I just don't like black people because blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, awesome. Because then I can talk to you about it. I'm like, well, what's going on, man? Like, what happened? And it's usually like they jumped my little sister on the way home from school, and they have some legitimate gripe in there, and it's like, or like growing up, they used to beat me up all the time and, treat me like crap because I went to an all-black school. I'm like, okay, cool, I get it, dude. But just having the conversation, not getting triggered because of whatever, and being able to just listen to them and understand them. I'm telling you, man, there's some magic in that. Like I've experienced it for sure.
Absolutely.
So that's good stuff. What would you say? So obviously gaining rapport with another culture group, or we see this a lot in executive protection when you're entering a venue, you're entering a culture. This is a place, where they have stars every week, all week. You show up with your client and you're like, yo, we're the business. We're the coolest, most legitest detail ever. They're like, it's a slow Tuesday. You know what I mean? So that whole leading with respect, understanding where you're at, it gets us a really, really, really far, like really long way. I don't know. So I'm just relating this kind of to what we do even in the private security industry.
Absolutely.
What would you say if you were going to give like ABCs about verbal de-escalation? What would be the primary considerations when you're speaking to someone and they're up here and they're stressed out and they're aggressive? What are you trying to do? It's theology,
Well, it's actually everyone wants to be heard. When people are yelling, it's because they feel like they're not being heard.
Okay.
There's an old adage that calm begets calm. Don't yell back. Speak softer than even your normal voice. Now they have to bring their voice down if they're going to have any attempt to hear you. It is very, very hard to yell at me if we I'm not saying it's always safe, and I'm not recommending you do this, but if you have somebody who is really amped up, sit down with them. How many people have yelled?
Break their body language.
Change the body language.
Oh.
Change your position. It works a lot. I'm not saying let someone tower over you, but if you both sit together, and then if you can turn and look at each other, it can be a situation where this will almost automatically calm people down. Don't yell back. You're going to need to, at some point, you can't let someone just go on and on and on, but at the same time, hear them out. And that's what, don't ever I'm not saying put yourself in a tactical disadvantage, but I'm saying when someone's very, very upset, it's for a reason. And if you have the time to listen to them, sometimes that's all they want. And then they recognize you may not even be able to solve what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you were genuine in listening to them and taking them for the issue that it is, not being dismissive, yeah, but actually listening and being responsive goes such a long way. And then the other thing you want to do, if at all possible, is people have a tendency to be far louder, far more vocal, far more animated when they're in a group.
Okay.
If you can talk to that person separately, hey, I see that you're very upset. Can we talk for just a minute and walk them away from their group? Defenses come down. They don't have to put on a show, put on an air for the group. This person has a much better chance of coming back down to be far more like themselves. And also, you're showing that empathy that, hey, I'd really like to hear what it is that you have to say. If we move away from this group, I can hear you, and then we can have a decent conversation. It's that's the type of crisis communication for right there on the scene when you've got someone who is very, very upset, and sometimes you don't even really know why. You didn't see the precipitating event. You didn't see what caused this. So what is it that I can do? And taking that time, who doesn't want that show of respect that I'd like to take it and actually listen to you? Would you please? And the other thing that shows interest, ask questions.
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone likes to explain their point. We were talking about different cultures earlier. My community is very, very multicultural. And because I didn't understand, so what I did is I went to where as a group and asked, I said, I'm going to be coming in for a mosque for the first time. I do not want to embarrass myself or offend you. Would you take a few minutes and explain to me what is the best way for me to handle this? I have never had anyone say, absolutely not, we're not going to do that. Everyone takes that approach, very willing to explain to you what is acceptable behavior and how you manage that situation. Humility.
Yeah, no one's gonna. Yeah, absolutely, because you're honoring them. Like you're honoring their culture and you're respecting them. And so it sounds like de-escalation, like ABCs. It sounds like it's like understand, show the person that you have a desire to understand where they're coming from, and if you can understand where they're coming from, you don't necessarily maybe have to validate it, but humanize yourself. Take yourself, maybe change the environment so that you're not so, hey, I'm the suit and you're the normal person, and try to hear them out, and then maybe try to connect with them by either doing what you can or telling them your situation. But they really just want to know that they're being heard. seems to be the...
Absolutely. People want to feel like they're important enough that you're willing to listen to them.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I like it.
There.
Is there a certain mindset that you're in? Are you kind of like, I guess it's kind of a compassionate, you're trying to, like, I know for me, I'm like looking at an equation. I'm like, how can I understand what this person needs? And how can I either get it for them or give them some type of validation in place of it if I can't give it to them?
Well, it is a mindset, and it's also, it's a posture.
Mm-hmm.
It's your physical posture, but it's also, they need to walk away with the understanding that you were sincere. And which I think is what it means to be professional anyway, but to have the sincerity.
I haven't heard that before. That's good. To be professional is to be sincere. Is this what?
Well, I think there are definitely parallels that you can draw. If you're not sincere in your efforts, then are you the top level professional anyway?
Yeah. It goes back to that congruence we were talking about between the guy who it's a day job and the guy who's just who he is.
Without a doubt.
Wow. Okay. So, go ahead. Were you going to say more?
I think that people recognize when you're being open and sincere with them, that even when you have to tell them no, that listen, unfortunately, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do for you. I can't get you backstage. I can't do this. I'm not able to do that. I think people are, in general, people are compliant. They understand, they get it, and they move on.
And I think what's like, this doesn't have to be like a whole long drawn out thing. Like I've done this exact same thing within seconds and look someone right in their eyes and be like, hey, I wish I can help you with this, but maybe if you go over there, you might get to see him on the, like I've been able to do this multiple times quickly, very quickly and efficiently. And I've also seen the guy who has done the exact opposite where like we're in another country, clients taping, and someone's like going for a walk in the park, client's doing a live recording, and the guy's like, my other dude is like, yo, you can't walk through here. And like, I mean, it's like a little Jewish lady. So she's like not hearing it. Like good luck. Like she's like, her, it's like a little old Jewish couple. And they're like, hey, mister, like, this is our house. And then it turns into this thing. Client's looking over like, really, guys? And I slid in there and I did the whole kind of, sir, ma'am, I apologize. Is there any way at all? You can maybe take a different path, maybe go around. Unfortunately, we're recording live. I apologize for any disrespect you might be feeling right now, And they were like, for you, okay. This guy, and I was like, I had to look at my boy, but it worked, and it worked quickly.
But how many times in your career have you had to make up for someone else?
Yeah, trying to bring the average up. You show up to the venue after your advanced guy's been there, and all the house security's treating you like you guys are a bunch of jerks. You haven't even met him yet. That has happened a lot, and it shouldn't. It doesn't need to happen. It's that false bravado piece. I feel like
Yeah.
What would you say about crisis communication? You said is something you teach. What would be the ABCs of crisis communication? If someone was like, oh, that sounds interesting. What do I need to know about it?
Okay, so to be a good crisis communicator, you actually have to try to understand what the real problem is. People will be worked up, and in crisis, it is very difficult to get someone to be logical and start focusing on solutions.
Okay.
So the first thing to do, you were talking about like adrenaline. And when people are very, very excited, you've got to help them to get back down to a much more normal level in order to get them to work towards any type of conclusion. The first part of crisis communication, you've got to get to where you have a real interest in people. Somebody who wants to be a good crisis communicator or has interest in doing this for a career, you have to take a long look at yourself and say, am I capable of letting other people talk, being a great listener, and then when it's time, interjecting, but at the same time, I've got to make sure that you're putting them ahead of you. It's kind of like dealing with kids. It's kind of like dealing with people who just really are angry with you, even though it has nothing to do with you. You've got to be able to not take things personally. You talk about emotional intelligence. That's intelligence. You
absolutely,
because they're not mad at you; they're just angry. So they'll take it out on you. You have to be able to put them first and work through their problem with them, and understand that time is your friend.
Okay.
If you think about when you're upset, if someone is now talking with you and time is passing and more time is passing, remaining that upset or that agitated way up here, very hard to do.
Absolutely. You got to work at it. Like, it takes focus. Like, I can do it for a while, but no, I don't do that anymore ever. But when I was little, I used to pride myself on staying, of course, till I got a spanking about it. But yeah, that's funny. So time is on your side.
Time typically is your friend. And if you've got a situation that's volatile or dangerous, the more time that you can get to pass without someone being harmed, though more likely it is that no one will be harmed. Because people become, it's a very heightened sense. It's a very focused intensity, and that's going to dissipate. The body and mind have a very, very hard time staying at that.
That level of intensity.
So anyone who wants to do this type of crisis communication, talk with people, I mean, I've been a hostage negotiator for better part of 13 or 14 years, but you have to understand that it's very rare that you're going to be talking with people who have taken hostages like in the movies where it's for benefit, it's for gain. It's essentially in domestic violence type situations. It's people who feel a complete loss of control. So you're trying to help them feel some way of gaining control back, which means the focus has to be on them and not on you.
Yeah.
So it takes a personality type who can do that and have that level of compassion. But at the same time, working in the background, you may be that guy who has to talk someone into putting themselves in harm's way.
Like talk them in jail? Like, how do you mean?
Definitely talk them into jail, but
he's like, that's normal. Talking them into jail.
That's just normal.
It's a slow Tuesday.
You're not telling them things are going to be okay, because long term they may not be okay.
Yeah.
Long term, the future may be prison.
Yeah.
But that no one's going to harm them, that this is, very few people are extremely fatalistic, meaning they don't necessarily want to be harmed or die that moment. Even when they've posted on Facebook doesn't make it true.
Right. That's interesting.
There is some level of self-preservation going on. So
you tap into that.
You as a hostage or crisis negotiator may have to talk someone into putting themselves in a position where if this isn't going well, if the tactical leader says, or the incident commander says, this isn't going well and this looks like these people could be in harm's way, I may need to talk someone into getting themselves in a position where they can be taken out.
Interesting. Wow.
you have to have that in your mind that you can do that.
Oh, so this is a lot like anything, it's like, you have to be, it's like going to war. It's like it's a form of combat. It can be.
Without a doubt it is. And I've had it described to me as, it's a strategy game. Well, I don't like comparing anything that involves people's lives to a game.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it's using strategy. There are techniques that you want to use to de-escalate people, to get them to start thinking about why they may not want to do what it is they're doing. Whether you have family members, you're looking for that hook, that set of circumstances that brings them back down to reality. And that can be difficult to do. It can be very difficult to deal with someone who feels like they have absolutely nothing to lose.
Yeah. And so what you have to do is find something they're still attached to, find some type of leverage within that soup of misery and hopelessness that they have.
That's very well put. Yes, that's exactly what you're looking for.
And then if you, then tactically, if it seems like there's still a danger to everyone, you've got to help the tactical team do what they need to do so that the innocent people are actually okay at the end of the crisis.
Absolutely. My goal when I arrive is that everyone, including the suspect, goes on from the situation safely. It's not always possible.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Interesting. Does it happen more often than not? Is it?
In my career, I've had one instance where it didn't go as I was hoping for when I arrived. Mm-hmm. Very few people are so overly committed to this plan. And then when they put their family members in it, those are people you can usually talk out. I had one gentleman who he knew it meant a lifetime in prison after this. He'd been to prison before. He knew that was his own option. He did let the female go, and then he committed suicide as opposed to going back to prison.
Back to prison. Understood. Is there a difference between crisis communication and hostage negotiation? If so, what would those be?
There is, but hostage negotiation involves a lot of crisis communication. Crisis communication is the style of you're active listening. You're listening for all the things that this person says, but also maybe more of what it truly means or what it means to them. You're looking for something underlying in it. You also use a team. This isn't a one-person show. You've got other detectives who are trying to gather as much intel for you as they possibly can.
Okay.
This is this guy's background. One of the things we do, of course, is scour social media. What the person posted in the last 30 days, the last week, the weekend, and try to figure out what got us to where we are right now. How did we get here? And that can be complicated, but at the same time, it's so useful because that's how you start unwinding it and getting to where you can be helpful to this person. And helpful just may be you get them to survive the incident.
Mm-hmm. Well, so it's like verbal de-escalation as part of crisis communication is then just the intensity of the incident goes up as part of kind of the hostage negotiation.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Are there any like do's and don'ts of hostage negotiation? Like very bad idea. Make sure you do these. Any like that come to mind?
Okay, so bad ideas, lying to a hostage taker. Here's why. I'm not saying that you wouldn't lie. What I'm saying is if you do and they figure it out, your credibility is shot.
Yeah, you just get someone else on the phone. Like
you might as well go because they're not talking to you anymore. Any rapport that you had built is now destroyed.
Yeah.
Don't overpromise. There are things you absolutely can't do. Don't tell them that, yeah, I'll do that. You may want to tell them, I'll have to check on that. I have bosses too. And maybe that buys you time, but don't oversell and underdeliver. And be sincere with people again, because there may be people where you have to deal with them again. So
wow.
if you built this rapport with them, suicidal barricaded subjects. They're in their home, you're now communicating with them. If you destroy any type of rapport, if you're in a community where you may be the only person who's going to have this type of communication with them, and now they don't trust, believe, or have any interest in speaking with you, that can be very difficult.
Yeah, geez. So be genuine. Don't tell lies. And sounds like, good rules for human
Sounds like
interaction.
communication in general.
Yeah, exactly. Don't make it about yourself, Any misconceptions? I know you said it's not like the usual, people kidnap, like, hey, I want $1 million. Like, it's not like that. It's usually like people at the bottom of the barrel or low end of life.
That does exist, but very, very little in this country. I think that's primarily some places in South America have kind of made a sport out of it. It can be very dangerous, but misconceptions about hostage negotiation is that you're going to get this done in 15 minutes, that you're going to, that it's going to be fast, that it doesn't take real effort and skill, and that the people who are in crisis, that it's not legitimate, that they're just, sure, there are people who they're looking for some type of notoriety. And of course, if I can stream this live on something like that, I'll get some notoriety. But who would, for the most part, who would put themselves through this if it wasn't real? This is somebody who was facing a long time away. I think those are some misconceptions. That take it seriously.
Yeah. How do you gain rapport with someone who knows you're the police and they know they're going to go to jail? Like, and they know there's almost definitely somewhat of a bad ending to this thing. Like, how does this, how do you even get them to talk with you on the phone? I guess they want to get something out of the deal, so they got to talk with you.
That can be the hardest part, is actually making that initial contact. Once you've got that contact, and I've been hung up on 100 times, and that's fine too. But in general, people who are in this level of crisis, they want to tell someone about it. And if you, through your actions, through your communication style, convince them that you're someone who's willing to listen, they'll talk to you.
Really?
You don't have to be anything like them. The only other thing that I would tell you, though, is every crisis negotiation team needs a female perspective on it. But don't ever think that it's necessarily your best option for a crisis negotiator, a hostage negotiator.
Okay.
I've been on a call out where it almost blew up on us when we had a woman make contact with him, because that's the reason he was upset in the first place.
He was like, I don't want to talk to any more women.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. It's not funny. I understand. I don't understand. It's hilarious.
So, yeah.
Oh, good time.
But building rapport can be, it's time consuming. Recognize it's not going to happen in 10 minutes. That getting someone to trust you, to want to tell you what's going on in their life is going to take a little bit of time. But once you've got them doing it, it's pretty incredible just what people will tell you, knowing full well they get it at some level that this ends with me in handcuffs heading off to jail.
Yeah, best case scenario. That's interesting, man. I look at this as like, so communication is something we all do, but you're doing it at this high level, high stakes. It's like, you're like driving a fighter jet and the rest of us have to like go and go through our normal days, or like you're like in the NFL and like, we got to go play flag football here. It's not as high stakes. It's not as intense, but I feel like if I can understand the principles and the way, that you're doing these things, I think it can really be advantageous to everyone in their everyday life, let alone when they're doing security work, because everything good and bad that comes in and out of people's lives, I believe a lot of things come through relationships. And communication is like the blood that flows through these relationships, even if it's a momentary contact. So this is just so interesting to me, man. I could sit here and dig around in this stuff, forever. What would you say were the hardest lessons you learned out in the field?
You can do everything right, so to speak, and still have it go wrong. Still have the situation go out of control simply because the person who caused this situation wanted it to go out of control. In police work, we're in a position where we're responding to someone who has decided to take a particular action. Yeah. And you get there and you do everything that you've been trained to do the way you have. And at the end of the day, you thought this was somebody you could save. And despite your best efforts, he shot himself. Yeah, man. That's tough. And you make like a little relationship with the person. You're sitting there kind of talking with them, kind of pulling for them a little bit. Do you hedge your emotions against this now, or is it, like it seems like something when you're first starting the job can be really tough because you put your heart into things, I don't know. Like even as a psychologist, it's like in the beginning, you kind of are going through this ride, not that I'm a psychologist, but it seems like it. Yeah. How have you dealt with that? Look, I think if you're going to be effective, each time, even decades in, you still have to be just as enthusiastic and just as sincere as you were in the first place. I think we have known for years in my profession that you need to talk to others about this. And we have groups, and then you have, after a situation like that, you have mandatory counseling afterward, because otherwise you run the risk of losing people. I'm sure you saw that in military service, that guys check out. They're like, I'm all done here. That was enough. Yeah, they're like, and they can just tap out, man. Right. So you've got to take care of yourself psychologically and emotionally after something like that, and understand it's kind of like EP work too. That when it goes well, everything goes well, that can be kind of an intoxicating thing too. That you're on top of the world, and you think, man, I'm really, really good at this.
I want to think so bad that I'm good at this.
Like, and you kind of have to keep yourself in check, and that's other people can be very good at this and tell you, dude, you just got lucky, or you know, it was supposed to work out. Those types of things, as opposed to look how great I am. And you need people who have no problem telling you exactly what they think.
That's good. They'll tell you what they think you need to hear too. You know, genuine friends. That's value. So it's not about your heart being cold as usual. It's about the resilience of a healthy heart and making sure you keep yourself healthy internally to deal with the rigors of the job. Really.
Absolutely.
Solid. What would you say is your proudest moment in the field?
Proudest moment is when I figured out that I didn't have all the answers, but I was to the point in my career where I knew where to go to get the answers. I would tell people, don't ever be afraid to tell people you don't know. Young people, young professionals, security workers,
notorious for this.
You don't want to say I don't know.
Yeah.
When I had enough experience and enough knowledge to be comfortable with myself, I think my proudest moment was recognizing that I'm really good at being me and I'm comfortable being me.
Okay.
That people will recognize if you're trying to do something that you.
Yeah, we're all psychologists naturally.
and I think it comes through. I think people can hide it for a little bit, but it's very difficult to be something you're not. I've had a couple of situations where I've really been able to talk to people, connect with people, and what I like to do is check on them 6 months later, a year later, and see, okay, now how are you still doing? How did this go for you?
Yeah. That sounds like it could be rewarding. Go ahead.
If you tell people you're going to, then do it.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, that's huge. You better do it. Because they're sitting there thinking like, yeah, right, top guy.
And it's amazing the response that you get when 6 months later you send them an email or you shoot them a text and they're like, wow, this guy actually did care.
Yeah, this guy actually did care, which is rare now, in the world, our digital world. It's so priceless.
I think it is. I think you're right.
Absolutely. Advice to someone considering getting into the field. Crisis negotiation, crisis communication.
Do it for all the right reasons. The world needs you right now more than ever. Be part of this. I'm telling you, as far as from my experience, it's incredibly rewarding. You will understand just how much effect you can have on people's lives, but that comes at a cost, because you will understand just how much effect you can have on people's lives. So if you're going to do it as well as you possibly can. You deserve that, and the people that you serve deserve you being the best that you can be.
Outstanding. This sounds like the stuff I'll be talking about on Instagram, man. You got to unlock your potential so you can serve your loved ones, your God, on the highest level. Your loved ones who, your loved one who chose to make you their champion, your children who just were given, they didn't get to choose, and you're their champion. They're all counting on you. You got to bring the best of yourself out in order to be able to serve on those higher levels. That's good stuff. I love it. Our last few closing questions here. It's been good talking with you, Jeff, for sure, as I knew it would be. Favorite quote, mantra, saying?
I think my favorite mantra is be sincere in order to be effective. It comes from a business school standpoint. That's actually, I'd love to take credit. It's part of the Harvard Business School. And they did a study that the most effective CEOs also had the people working for them felt that their level of sincerity, they were rated with extremely high levels of sincerity. They didn't all have the highest ratings for their effectiveness or how great of a communicator they were, but what they had was incredibly high scores for being sincere, for being genuine. If you want to be great at anything, really put your heart and soul into it.
This is good stuff. It's so true. Like, I mean, it's good. You know, it's like, I guess it strikes a chord with me because there are times when I've tried to speak or present something, and if it's not coming from my heart, it's like powerless. It's like a clanging cymbal. It's like a waste of time. You know, I'm like, I even hate listening to me talk about this. But if it's sincere, it's got like a whole nother energy to it. And it's like people kind of talk about find your passion, your purpose, and all these things. But this sincerity way of being, you know, of state of operation, I really believe, I know that it's really, really powerful. When other humans experience it, especially now, it's kind of like respect. It goes an extra long way because there's just nothing sacred anymore. It feels like sometimes you know, when someone's like, this person's sincere and genuine, it's like, you know, you're really valuable to the other person. But even, you know, I just see it. I see that as a very valuable thing to have in many areas of life. When I've been wrong, when I've made mistakes, when my clients have been like, hey, dude, what were you thinking about? If I can sincerely, you know, explain, like, I really believed this, it was a mistake. And I really won't do it again, you know, and if I can be sincere in these very important moments, it's been extremely, extremely positive, the outcomes. So I like that, man. Be sincere to be effective. That's huge. I'm going to take that one with me for sure.
Absolutely. It's not mine, but I like it because it's so concise, and it really, people can tell when it's not in your heart. It shows.
Yeah. What habits would you say, if you had a habit that you believe makes you a better professional or better at life, what would it be?
I am early to everything.
Yes, you are.
And I'm always prepared. B, when you're going to a business meeting, when you're going to a lunch, no matter what it is, be prepared. It doesn't take that much extra time, and it just conveys how important the other person is, how important the meeting is to you, because you walk in with a page of notes and you typed up an agenda. It tells everyone at that table that this mattered to you. Yeah,
that's awesome. I can do better at that one. I'm one of those creative minded folks. So I have a tendency to just show up and freestyle it and wing it. And it's great. It's done. But I'm always deeply impressed when I look next to me and there's that guy who's got like, hey man, I sent you the agenda for things that we're going to look at. And like, he's there, he's early. I'm always like, that's a guy I got to make sure is on my team, you know?
That's exactly what I would tell you too, is don't change you. Surround yourself with a couple of guys like that, like what you just described. I'm that guy, but I work with people who are a little bit more, they're going all the time, and they're great, and they're really, really good at what they do. So complement each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good to go. I'm still going to try to be a little bit more of those things. You know, never hurts nothing, never hurts nobody. Awesome, man. Well, it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate, the time, being flexible with me on the schedule, and all that stuff. This has been fantastic information that I think is relevant to everyone listening, no matter what they do for a living. So that's been awesome. Thanks so much for coming on with me, Jeff.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me. And please let me know if I can answer anything else for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have one more question. What are you up to these days, man? What are you doing these days? Where can people find you?
Okay, so I'm still with the police department. I'm eligible to retire, and cool. I really enjoy what I discovered is I really enjoy EP work. I like the advanced portion. I like working with the client. I've enjoyed this. I've had the chance now to do this for several years. We have a very large tennis tournament. Sounds kind of silly, but it's one of the biggest in the world.
There you go.
in our small town. So I get to work awesome. That. I really enjoy that. And so I'm now looking maybe in a corporate world, something like that. But it's interesting to me. I'm enjoying things. I'm here in Southwest Ohio. I'm right near Cincinnati. And we have some light snow falling today, which is very unusual for you, I know, but so it's good. I'm in a great place in my career, in my life. So I'm looking to see what comes next for me.
Okay, awesome. Well, the executive protection industry I think is fantastic to transition into, especially with your mindset and the way that your way of doing relationships and people, and doing. Our industry is growing so much right now, the opportunities I'm seeing. So I'm excited to see where you fit in and all that stuff. I'd love to be on a detail that you're running, man. I can already tell for sure.
That would be fun. Yes. Well, and I think as a professional, you try to surround yourself with others who will complement you, who you're comfortable with. Sometimes you don't get to choose the team you work with, but it's awfully nice when you do.
That's the truth. Awesome. All right. Good to go. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate you, man. Once again, this has been great. It's good to see you again, and you know where to find me. Thank you for your time, sir.
All right, Byron. Thank you.
Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place by teaching people how to protect themselves and the mindset behind that, the lifestyle behind that. You guys are already killing it. $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can do that you would probably just lose in the mattress anyway or spend on McDonald's. Hey, you want to put it towards something that's going to good use, put it towards a podcast, and get involved in our Patreon account at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. And if you want to find me, that's ByronRodgersMotivation.com. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can to that Patreon account, because it makes all of these things possible, ladies and gentlemen. So much love. Thank you, and thank you for making those contributions. You guys rock. We're already doing amazing there, and it's just because of you guys. So thanks once again for those contributions. Boom. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This whole entire thing actually just started off as a Facebook group that blew up and is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing, executive protection Facebook group online. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, join the Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram and check us out at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. If you want to find me, that's ByronRodgersMotivation.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as well. So until the next podcast, y'all, stay sharp out there. And as I say it, one mind, many weapons. Talk soon. Out.